What up, what up, what up? Welcome to the very first episode of New Orleans Basketball in 2024, a New Orleans Network podcast. As always, it is myself, Raphael Rattler, welcoming you into the new year, and apparently a new Pelicans team, joined by my fellow middle brother. Happy New Year, bro. What's poppin' with you?
Happy New Year, man. Missed you, man. Missed you, Mr. Pie. Had to get away, man. Had some things, family, holidays, just things, Again, we always say life be lifing. So appreciate everybody rocking with us, man. Missed y'all. We back. Good to see everybody's smiling faces. Feel like the first day of school again. But Happy New Year, like you said. New year, new me, new year, new pals. I guess that's how they doing, right? I guess the New Year's resolutions have started to kick in already, and you see some things going on. So yeah, man, everything's all good on this end. Just came back from watching the Pels get busy once again. Take another team behind the woodshed and do what they were supposed to do. So it was a fun night, kind of watching those guys do what they do. So. Ready to get back into it, ready to talk about these Pels, man. Let's get into it.
First off, I am praying, and I feel like it's like a common thing that everybody has a better 2024 than they had 2023.
It's got
Pels included, just everybody in general. So first off, again, welcome you guys to the new year. I hope that it's a prosperous year and a healthy year for everybody's family, because God knows we need it on this side. So before we get too far on the show, because it's been a minute since we've been able to get on this pod and talk about the Pelicans, there's been a lot of good to talk about and some bad. Make sure you follow us on X, on Twitter, on IG, the TikTok. That's NO Basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below, and make sure you subscribe to New Orleans Basketball as we kick off the new year. So let's rewind a little bit. Obviously, the Pelicans have, I don't even know what you want to call tonight's game a game. It was more like one team decided to show up and put some stats on the board, and the other team was like, nah, we good. So let's rewind a little bit into the 2023 when the vaunted Lakers,
all the way to last year.
Jeez. We gotta bring up old stuff. Let's rewind to the Lakers game on New Year's Eve, where really the last time the Pelicans got embarrassed. Now, the two Grizzlies losses were tough. Those were tough losses. One of the Minnesota losses was a tough one. Like, there was some losses in there that were tough, but all in all, it's like, okay, you use the game. The Lakers loss was the last game that was embarrassing for the Pelicans. And since that time period, you could tell that this game was circled. Like they interviewed some of the players in practice, and they talk about, is this another game? And they're like, hell no, this ain't another game. Like, they embarrassed us in a game that meant something on national television. We want a chance to get our get back, right? That's what Trey Call is. They get back. They got smashed. What are you going to do on the other end? So I was looking from the tip off, because if you remember in that Vegas game, the very first play of the game, the Lakers win the tip. LeBron puts her in the shadow realm in the post and immediately scores 2 points. And immediately you're like, this might not go well, and it did not. So I was looking to see how the Pelicans started out the game, and there were some turnovers, there was some nerves to that game, but really quickly you could see the Pelicans were saying, not this time around. We are going to put our name on the game. So what did you see from that Lakers game where the Pelicans ultimately run away with it, win by 20 points, and really kind of kickstart their 2024 with the, okay, we conquered a little bit of the demons for the time being. Let's move forward with our season.
Yeah, that first play of the game in Vegas was very emblematic, because not only did LeBron put Herb in the shadow realm and score 2, he got an and 1 and made the free throw. So immediately from a psychological standpoint, you're already looking at this young team getting on TV and the lights are bright and everybody's looking at the in-season tournament. And then you see the first play of the game, the best defender on your team get absolutely demolished and won while LeBron is flexing. It was a psychological, it's not happening today, Pelicans, and it played itself out. Well, you fast forward to this game, and you saw Brandon Ingram, you saw Zion, you saw CJ, for sure CJ, come out and say, not today. It's not going to happen today. And I think, that was a huge step for the Pelicans. Listen, this is a game in December. You want to take advantage of these home stands and in these games, but you gotta beat these teams, and for them to come out and play the way they did, and for it to be the Lakers on the other side of it, I think it was like a momentum boost. It was a morale boost, and I think the one thing about that game is you saw what like a beautiful Pelicans, I guess, like stat sheet game would look like, right? Where you have the big three all going for 20, but you have Jose being the guy who makes the plays and makes the energy plays that you remember. And, you get Herb out there flying all over the floor and things like that. And it's not just so much about the big three scoring, because, listen, those guys can put up buckets and they can score with the best of them. It's about the way those buckets happen. It's about the way they scored. It's about the manner and the physicality that they played with, and the determination to, not let this happen, right? We saw in that first Lakers game, LeBron started feeling himself. He started pulling up from right inside the timeline, and that was the gut punch, the haymaker that kind of pushed the Pelicans back into that kind of in LeBron. I called it in LeBron shadow. Well, he tried it this game. He tried it. He hit 2 back-to-back, they call it that, the Lee F word 3-pointers, the FU 3-pointers. He tried them. He tried them in the Smoothie King Center, and Jose right back at it. And to coming back and getting that steal. And I mean, really bullying LeBron. Like Jose was out there bullying LeBron. I know LeBron was like, bruh, it's New Year's Eve. I'm in New Orleans. My kids in California. Like, it's the second night of a back-to-back. Why is this little dude running up and down, stealing the ball, running around in circles? It was the most Jose Alvarado game this season. And I tweeted that the game ball should have went to him because it was the most Jose game, and it was. So it was a really good showing for the Pelicans, a really good showing for the team, especially down Trey Murphy and not having their full complement of players. To go out there and do that the way that they did was quite the showing. And I think this is kind of part of the turn that we're seeing, that we're going to talk about, where the Pelicans are even some of the losses and the way that it's felt in some of those losses, the Pelicans have been playing some really good basketball lately.
Right. So the two things I highlight are a little bit different from those games. One of them, because, again, like Jose said after the game, they want to beat them in the playoffs and knock them out, not necessarily a regular season game. But you still want to take away nuggets of when you're playing teams in the regular season to stow away for the playoffs. Something that was important to me was, the Pels suffer with size. Obviously, Larry Nance is a lower side five, a smaller five, and we'll talk about that. JV's not the most athletic guy, the biggest rim runner or anything like that. And then Cody Zeller's an effort guy, and JRE is not a center. He just happens to be strong. So, so they struggle with size, and the Lakers have 8 7-footers on their roster. What I was looking at was how JV guarded AD, and Anthony Davis still got his double-double, his 20 and 10. But they weren't easy buckets. Like, JV was making him work, and that stood out to me because, again, as we've seen over the course of this season, JV's had his moments defensively, and if you could just be serviceable enough and then make Anthony Davis work on the defensive end, that is a weapon in itself. And so, that really stood out to me, that even though, we talk about, hey, this is a regular season game, LeBron gave you 34. Anthony Davis gave you 20 and 10. Austin Reeves has his moments. how much better are the Lakers going to play than that, right? Like it's not like it's a game where everybody had an off shooting night. Like everyone kind of did their thing, but to your point, the Pelicans played like a team. The sum of parts are bigger than 39-year-old LeBron James and Anthony Davis. When the Pelicans play as a roster, like this is how we attack you as a team, that you're not going to beat LeBron versus Zion. You're not going to beat AD versus Brandon Ingram. It's not going to work that way. When you play Pelicans versus Lakers basketball, you tend to see a trend. And so that really was important to me. The other aspect of it is we always talk about the Pelicans not necessarily like playing to their matchups or playing to their advantages. Well, the Lakers are an old team coming off a back-to-back, so the Pelicans got out and pushed the pace. From start to finish, CJ, Jose, they were bringing the ball up the court with 20 seconds on the shot clock left, getting shots up quick, playing in transition, playing with some type of force, to your point. So you're taking advantage of a team, and when LeBron starts trying to peel them back in the fourth quarter, their legs are tired, and they don't want to run with you, and you're not bailing them out because you're dribbling the ball up the court and getting into your offensive sets with 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Like they push the pace and they play to their advantage, which is something you want to see them do more consistently. And so, yeah, it's an inaugural in-season tournament. Lakers walk out with the dub. But since then, the Pels are 8-4 and the Lakers are 3-8. So do what you want with that. So let's fast forward to tonight's game. Again, Pelicans get out to a start. Literally, I think they made like their first 10 shots. Like it very quickly, you were like, oh yeah, the Nets are not trying to play tonight. Like it was the Pels couldn't miss a three. Zion gets a early foul trouble. It doesn't matter. Nobody's over 20 points. It doesn't matter. The Nets have 34 points at half. They're like a 2K rec game when everybody quits except one guy who's trying to get his BC up. Like it was bad. You could tell they weren't making no third quarter push. They were ready to get out of here and get on to the next destination. But what did you see from the game tonight? To your point, there's been some tough losses, but the Pels have been slowly kicking everybody's ass in the wins that they have had. So what were some of the takeaways you had from the nice game versus Nets?
The Nets are not very good.
No,
I definitely took that away. But I think the first thing is I think we can all agree that if the Pelicans make a lot of threes, they win a lot of games. And they started off, and I mean, like immediately it was CJ, BI, JV, and like Zion had
Herb.
2 of the assists. Yeah, Herb. Like and Zion had the assist going, and I was like, okay, so. I tweeted earlier that like Zion and JV should be the ones feasting on the front court of Claxton and Cam Johnson, only because like those guys are very slim. Like Zion and JV are not slim. So, kind of push-pull. And okay, so like you're not gonna stop that, but also the Pelicans are gonna hit threes from everywhere. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a long night for Brooklyn. And man, was it. And I think, like I tweeted earlier, the best thing to come out of that is that the Pelicans came out, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and they got BI and CJ and Zion and JV and Herb and a lot of those guys. Nobody played more than 25 minutes. So I going into a back-to-back with Minnesota when we've been talking about this January stretch, it's here. Like it is here. And going into this stretch, you want to make sure that you're getting those guys the rest and you're not taking games for granted and going into the full quarter against a Brooklyn Nets team that has no business being on the floor with you. Trey Murphy be damned. So I think it was a game where you wanted to see the Pelicans. Okay, listen, you took some rough losses on the chin between Josh, his return game and the second Memphis game and the Lakers game. Like you took some tough games, but like the Pelicans are still right in that. They're at 6, can go up to 5 as early as tonight. 2 games behind the 3 seed. Like you're still among where you want to be. And so if that's the team that you are, then when you're on a heater like this and you're this the last home game of the 5-game homestand, you're about to go against the Timberwolves, the number 1 seed in the West. Like, are you looking past this team? Are you playing around with your food? Are you, not doing the things that you're doing, trying to play more hero ball and not? And you did not see that from the Pelicans. You saw ball movement. You saw the guys come out and do exactly what they do. what they were supposed to do. And like I said, you know, the defense is humming when the Nets have, like you said, 34 points, 30 whatever points at halftime and finish with 84, 85 points. But Hawk had 2 blocks. So you know the defense rolling if John Hawkins had 2 blocks. So I think it was a good game all in all. And this is the kind of performance you want to have against an inferior team when you're going on that road to face the number 1 seed.
Right. So you and I were texting off the pod the day before, like, is this a trap game? And I felt like this was different. Obviously, you look at the Chicago game. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of games throughout the season where, like, okay, the Pelicans on a roll. Here comes a streak. And then there's that game that comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden the Pelicans are on a losing streak or drop the 5th game or whatever it may be in the win streak. But this feels a little bit different. Like, you could see – we talk about conquering demons. Like the Jazz are not a very talented team, but they've been a thorn in the Pelicans' side for the past couple of years because of their size and because, again, they have so much length. That's been the kryptonite for the Pelicans so far. But you saw them handle the Jazz in a way that they haven't been able to, even without Jordan Clarkson, without Kelly Olynyk, without Lauri Markkanen. They just struggled versus that team. And you saw them kind of approach it differently. And even in the Grizzlies' losses, you could arguably say those are games lost by the Pelicans, not games won by the Grizzlies, because they had large leads at home and they just blew them altogether. So you could see the wheels starting to churn and things starting to click and people starting to understand I could get my touches in the flow of the offense. You could get your touches. We are playing inside out. Like during this stretch in December, the Pelicans are second in the NBA in free throw attempts behind only Giannis and the Bucks. So like that's telling you that they're learning this is how we need to play. And they're 9th in 3-point percentage. So it means that they're going inside, and when they start doubling Zion and B.I. and JV, you're kicking it out to wide open quality threes, right? And so over this trend of December, you've kind of seen them take advantage of the teams you're supposed to, which is a sign of a good team, of a good team. You're seeing them struggle in some late game execution. Like, look, it wasn't that long ago when we're talking about the Celtics struggling in late game execution with Jason Tatum and Jalen. Like, this is not something that, like, I say it's a young team. And it was like, it's young, it's year 4, years 5. But this collective of players have not played very many games at all. So it's a young team and experience together, not just in age. But what was your point there?
And you know what else we learned from this 5-game to your point? What we learned from this 5-game road stand in the wins and the losses is the Pelicans have one major way to fix their late game execution: blow teams out and not have to play in the 4th quarter. In the late games against Memphis, you saw the Pelicans revert to some of their youthful ways, some of their inexperienced ways, some of their just bad habits and bad plays by the team. But then you get in these blowouts. Well, you know, Kyle go get some minutes, and Cody Zeller go run a pick and roll with Jeremiah Robinson Earl. And like if you want to exercise these late game demons, take care of the game ahead. The Pelicans have ample enough firepower, ample enough offensive weapons, ample enough just sheer talent to do this on a lot of games. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, is that they make it look so easy when it's rolling, and they make it look so difficult when it's not. And I think that's the thing that frustrates people a lot with this team.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the team is, like, I feel like there's been a negative, like, connotation about the team because they've struggled through some of these, and they haven't gotten the 6-game win streak and the 7-game win streak. But then you look at December, you're like, well, they had the 8th best record in the NBA. They lost like 4 games by a total of like 4 points. They had 6 wins of 10 plus games or 10 plus points or more. So like they're still not playing their best basketball, but they're still winning. And that's what you want to see. And you look at the standings in the West, it's like they're not that far off from like the top 2 or 3 seeds. So while they're learning to figure each other out, and while they're learning to figure out their rhythm, like Jose talks about all the time, it's like it's one thing to like return from injury and to get in basketball shape. It's another thing to like be hitting shots and be in rhythm in terms of shots you should be taking and plays on the court you should be making, things like that takes time. So not only are you having to do that from Trey's perspective, who missed the whole first quarter of the season, from Jose's perspective, from Larry Nance's perspective. Zion's been out. CJ missed time with the lung. So like, not only are you missing these things in individually perspective, but from a collective perspective, they've been struggling to kind of build something together. And now when you see in a couple games with the majority of the roster being healthy, you're starting to see it grow and grow from game to game. And so with this turnaround in the season, with some positive momentum heading into a hell of a January, what do you think has kind of been the mean or the biggest change or main a component or ingredient to the turnaround in this team?
I think the most important thing is that the guys, the team is leaning into, the things that make them great, right? Like we saw a lot of the times in like the Memphis, like especially in those Memphis games, right? Like when there were times where there were things on the court, matchups on the court, where the Pelicans were like letting people drive past them, and they were leaking out and not staying back for rebounds and things like that. And there was a stretch earlier in the season where I called like the Pelicans were paying attention to the details, right? Making the details important, making the small things important. And they got away from that in some of the games that they had. Like some of the blowout losses, like the Lakers loss, you could attribute that. Listen, that's an ugly game. It happens. But there were some of those games, like we called, that they lost by like 3 or 4 points, like games that they should have won, that they just let the details get away from them. And now you're seeing guys, tonight is a perfect example. I saw Zion chase down at least 4 shots. He got like 1 or 2, maybe. I think he finished with 1 block, but he chased down like 2 or 3, 4 shots. Herb is getting back to contesting shots and contesting those 3-point shots. Brandon Ingram has had a streak. I think he had 4 games in a row where he had 2 blocks or more in 4 straight games in this little run that they have. Like, defense is the calling card of this team. With all the offensive weapons, it starts on the defensive end for this team. And when you start to pay attention to those details and take care of that, then you get to play in transition. People are passing the ball now. They're moving. They want to be able to get out and get out in the run. And now they're more committed to the defense because they know that's how they're going to get their shots. They're going to get out and run. They're going to play like that. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're playing in transition and getting stops, as opposed to taking a ball out of the rim every single time and having to come down and face a defense that is geared to the wall and putting the wall up around BI and CJ, and Zion. And so, you get these clunky offensive possessions when you're not getting defensive stops. So I think the Pelicans are starting to get more into that. Like I said, play to the strengths, the things that make them great. And like you said, they're getting to the free throw line, right? They're playing downhill. They're being physical, and is leading to that high 3-point percentage because it's hard to build a wall around Zion and then also get out to Najee, who's shooting close to 40% from 3, who Trey Murphy, who you have to respect. Even Dyson now, right? Like Dyson has had his super struggles, but he has hit some 3-pointers in this stretch, right? He had 2 tonight. Like he is hitting some shots. And for a guy who got really, really behind and lost his confidence and all of that, he comes back to life a little bit. And now he's playing hellacious defense. He feels his more into it. And so I think playing to the things that make you great, starting with the defense, paying attention to those details, closing out on shots, being in the passing lane, knowing your personnel, knowing who to close out to, going up with vertical things, like all of those little things that don't show up on the stat sheet. Those are the things you pay attention to, and that's how you get defensive stops. That's how you get in transition. That's how you get the offense going. That's how you get everyone involved.
Right. We've said it for a long time. The Pelicans are a defensive team. And like when they've got to go in defensively, often it leads into their transition offense and the ability to score that way. And while they're figuring out how to work on the offensive side, if you bring the defense every night, you give yourself a chance every single night. You
hold a team to 85 points a game, you're going to win all of them. So the offense, forget it, how you figuring out. People don't know their roles. You play defense like that, you'll win a lot of games.
And it's crazy that like 2 seasons ago, if you would have told me, we talked about the Pelicans being top 10 in both offense and defense. Well, in December, they were 9th in offense and 4th in defense. If you would have told me 2 years ago that the roster would have a lot of the same players and they would be top 4 in defense after finishing top 6 last year, I'd say to hell you go. But look at this Pelicans teams go. So a big part of this turnaround, especially lately, and just the boost in the energy and the confidence that this team is playing with, has been the return of Larry Nance. And so, you know, again, we talk about Larry Nance, and you could see how what he brought to this roster when he was healthy has been missing. Like, as soon as he came back, it wasn't the points, it wasn't the rebound. It's just having an athletic big who can protect the rim at times, who can be in the dunker spot, who just gives you a threat at different spots offensively, and what that means for this team. And so what has his return done for the Pelicans' ability just to be versatile, be flexible? Because so far in some of these games, it feels as if, to your point, okay, you're going to build around the wall around Zion, we're going to hit our shooters. Okay, you're going to guard the guys on the perimeter, we're going to kill you inside. Okay, you're going to double Zion, I'm going to drop it off to the dunker spot and Larry Nance. You're finding answers to problems, and that's what you want to see over the course of the season. So what do you think Larry Nance, a healthy Larry Nance, let me reemphasize that, a healthy Larry Nance is bringing to this Pelicans roster?
Yeah, Larry is a guy, man. He's like a Hooper's like dream guy. Like if you were a coach and you were like, I need some Hoopers on my team. You know, Larry is a guy, man. He does everything, and he doesn't really like need the accolades. He doesn't look for any of that. He just goes out and does what he does. And what you saw, right? Even that Rockets game, right? You go to that Rockets game, and we watched a lot of conversations that were had about, you know, playing when JV fouled out, playing JRE, you know, and having him guard Sengun, and you see some of the things that Larry brings and that you miss when you're playing a guy like that, right? Like, Larry's not the biggest guy, he's not the tallest guy, but what he is he's athletic as hell, and he's smart. He's a very cerebral basketball player, and he's a guy that is always communicating. AD called him the quarterback of the defense. He knows where people are supposed to be, and he knows how to help. He knows how to shade it. He's athletic enough and nimble on his feet enough to shade and to help and then recover, right? And do things like that. And when you have a guy that is a lob threat, right? A guy that can set a screen and is at the rim and is a lob threat, like a healthy Larry Nance is, you know, it just brings another aspect of offense. Because listen, if you run it with Zion and him, right? Like, two people have to be in front of Zion. Zion's a great lob passer, right? That's somebody Larry setting the screen, and now like he can flare out to the 3-point line, and like your big has to at least respect that enough to go out there. And then he's also shown the ability to, you know, power dribble and go up and dunk on people. And so he just brings a lot of versatility on the offensive end. But I think where his impact is felt is that leadership in that defense. He puts people in positions that they need to be, and he communicates. You can hear Larry talking through the television sometimes if you listen close enough, or if you're at the game, you definitely can hear him on the screen. I mean, on the court, screaming and hey, go there, drop down, low man high. Like he's always talking, and I think that is the thing that you need right now. We talk about, you know, do the Pelicans still need that's you know, another 7-footer or a big man? Absolutely, I still agree that the Pelicans need that. It is something that is going, if you play enough games, is going to come and haunt you. We saw it against, you know, the Rockets. However, Larry has shown his value and his ability to do some of those things in small spurts, where I think, you know, you want to keep him healthy and you know, and have him available at the end of the season. And so, you know, you kind of have to be careful with how because we've seen it, right? Larry comes in and he has a streak where he plays really well, and then he gets hurt, right? Because that's just part of the you know, the package that comes with Larry Nance. But right now he's playing fantastic. He's been a great leader on the defensive side of the ball. He's given the Pelicans that lob threat. And you can see for night and day when he got back, how much better their defense, even though the defense was decent, now it looks like a finely tuned machine when you have a guy like Larry Nance behind and you have all of the guys able to press up and be more pressurized at the point of attack because they know they have Larry Nance behind them.
To your point, and I tweeted this out a couple games ago in our recap. Here's my thing. When I said the Pelicans are relying really heavy on Larry Nance being healthy, it's that being healthy part, because he hasn't shown you the ability to do it, especially late into the year when you're going to need him in the most crucial time when everything is about switching. And so my thought process about, and again, this is not us making it up. David Griffin got on the mic. It was like, we need to address rim protection, and then made no movements after that. So it's not like we're making this up. The Pelicans know it too. What an athletic big does for this team, it just unlocks so many things on their end, because you've got guys like Zion and BI that one of them should always be on the court. If you always have an eraser behind you, all these wing players that you have that you want to be aggressive, want to be second in the NBA in steals, want to be top 5 in deflections, that want to gamble, can gamble more. Because you got someone behind it that you trust on the back end, and you're not relying upon JV to get from one end of the court to the other, or James Robinson or Cody Zeller to be your rim protection. Like, having another guy just in case. I'm not saying you need to go find another starting center, but having another guy who's more defensive oriented, who's your third center, who's your fourth center, who just in case Larry Nance is not available, you are not like, well, I guess it's JRE at the 5. Like, having a backup option there is just so crucial for what it does to the team. And so I just think that that's something you still should be looking around the deadline for, to see if you can find a reserve big that, again, if you're going to go over and you're going to say we're all in, or we're going to say we're going to gamble a little bit on this team and what they're building together, you don't have to go way into the second tax or anything like that. But trying to find someone to give you some backup in a position that you definitely need, I think is important there. So we talk about the backups, we talk about the second line. Jose's had his games so far this year. Dyson's had his game so far this year. Najee's had his games. Jordan Hawkins had his game. Trey's had his game. Matt Ryan's had this game. Everybody's had their game so far. And so again, it's easy when in their wins, because you're like, okay, well, they won, who cares? But in losses, it's like, well, you didn't play this guy, you didn't play this guy. And it's hard when you got a bunch of guys who are capable of playing on any given night. And so what I'm looking for the most, and again, we've preached this for years on this podcast, the benefit of having a deep roster like the Pelicans do is not just being able to withstand injury and give people extra days like Trey to recover from soreness and things like that, but also the ability to play them at different times throughout the season, throughout games, to help win you game based on what the game calls for. And so when I look at, the Jose and Najee minutes, and I look at, the Hawk not getting minutes if Trey's available, or Dyson not getting as many minutes if Trey's available and things like that, I'm of the mindset is, obviously, if Willie Green trusts Jose and Najee and the veteran presence or experience that they have over Jordan Hawkins or Dyson Daniels, and just their confidence in what they're able to do, so be it, as long as they're hitting shots. If they're not hitting shots, I don't think it's that big of a draw or that disrespectful to look down your bench and say, let's give this guy a shot with 5-minute stretch, or this guy a shot with 5-minute stretch. And when you look at some of the rotations and how people are playing well with another, I see the BI and JV kind of being a staple. And I see the Zion and Larry, as long as he's healthy, kind of being a staple. So Zion's not really the 5 in that scenario. But what are the things you look at as the rotations sort of figure themselves out and we head into the back part of the season?
Yeah, it's just going to be a tough first world problem for the Pelicans. It's just going to be something that's going to happen every single night. Somebody is not going to play, and you're going to ask, should that person have played? Because everybody on that bench, like we said earlier, outside of Trey Murphy, everybody on that bench is kind of like should be a similar standing, right? Like everybody, if you think of like 2K rankings, like everybody's like 73 to 78, nobody's like Trey might be at 85 or 84, but like everybody else is in that 70s range. And so, they're interchangeable. And when you're interchangeable, that's where kind of like polarity begins, because somebody's going to have a fan club of Jordan Hawkins. Well, some other people are going to be, Jose Alvarado fans. Some people are going to be Najee Marshall fans. Some people are going to be Dyson Daniel fans. Some people are going to be about the youth movement. Some people are going to be about the veterans to win out. And so this is what happens, right? When you have such a diverse team of guys who can come in and play every time. And so, I agree with you. I think, if you have certain combinations that work, like I still don't understand. I don't see how Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, and Zion don't work. I don't see how that doesn't work. If there are places where in lineups where guys fit and matches are made, then I think that like you can kind of play into those more, right? Try to develop some sort of lineup cohesion for when you get into the playoffs and you might need this particular lineup because it shot well in third quarters with Zion and Trey and Jose or something like that. Like you want to find that thing. So just in case you need to go to it, you're not, this is the first, second, third time you're seeing it. And so you do want to find those, but at the same time, like anybody should be able to be pulled and played, right? Like anybody should be able to have that happen in the game and still do. And I think the discourse around it is more negative and toxic than like the actual players feel, because like Jose sits for some of the games, some of the minutes, and he's yelling and screaming and cheering for Hawk because he's on the floor, Dyson because he's on the floor. Same thing for Najee, right? Najee's on the bench. Najee didn't play a whole lot of minutes this game against the Nets, and he was on the sideline screaming for Jordan Hawkins and cheering for Dyson Daniels. And I think these guys understand the talent, right? You ask any of these guys about any of the other guys, and they'll tell you how great they are, right? It's no like, oh well, I should be. Even Jordan Hawkins talking about his stint in the G League. He said, "Listen, it was fun, got some shots up, got to play, but I'm here for the team for whenever they need me, right?" So like this is a championship, national championship winning guy, understands the team that he's on, right? And so it's a gift and a curse to have such a talented team. It's a gift and a curse to have so many guys around the same age, around the same parts of their careers and the same stages of their careers. It's a gift and a curse. But I think it's one of the things that like you just carry as a first world problem and understand that it's going to go on throughout the season. Some nights, when Trey gets back, Jordan Hawkins is going to be sitting right back on the bench, right? Like it's going to happen. And so like, but as when he gets on the floor, Jordan Hawkins led the team in shots tonight. And that was before
have to ask. And he was breaking too, but it did not matter.
Did not matter. That man, I tweeted about it earlier. You never question a man's confidence who comes into the league as a rookie wearing Grinch Kobe's to play basketball. That is a man who does not care about what you think. He knows exactly what he's there for. But yeah, I think that's just part of the first world problem. And it's just gonna be one of those things that happens. But you rather have these guys and not need them than to need them and not have them. So at some point in time, everybody's gonna get their name called. Like you said, everybody's had their game so far. And you're gonna have to need somebody. Let us not forget Kyra and Jackson Hayes in the play-in tournament last year. Let's not forget.
Season on the line.
Let's not forget. So stay ready. Everybody's going to stay ready. Everybody's a professional, and you're just going to have to deal with some games you play, some games you're not, and make the best of it when you do get on the floor.
Like I said, I think the regular season is about figuring out answers to problems and answers to questions. And the more ways and the more versatile you can be, the more you're harder to defend in the playoffs when someone stops your number one best thing or your number two best thing. When you have option 3 and 4 and 5 that you can go to and you feel confident in, I think that's important. I think the theme of this season is sacrifice. Like, you're hearing about all these MVP candidates and everybody is averaging 100 points per game and all this. And the Pelicans don't have any of those guys because, like, on the night like tonight where they win by 1,000 points, nobody has 20 points because everybody is spreading the ball around. And when these games where you're talking about the big three all averaging 20 or all scoring 20 points, well, that means somebody didn't score 45 and somebody didn't score 52. But again, if you're winning by 20, who cares, right? And so they're going to be sacrificing stats. They're going to be sacrificing that type of thing all season long from the stars and from the bench. But again, if the goal is to win at the end, it's all about how can you get there as healthy as possible and what can you learn along the way. So speaking along the way, obviously we just talked about having a solid December. Well, the payment comes due in January. So the Pelicans started off tonight, with their first win of 2024 in blowout fashion. But then they have 14 more games this season. And they only play 4 games versus teams under 500. And one of those happened tonight. And one of those is the Warriors. And you know how the Pelicans play when it's games versus the Warriors. You got 9 road games.
Ooh,
you got
Lord.
3 back-to-backs.
Ooh.
You play all 5 teams that are ahead of the Pelicans in the standings in the West. They are currently on their schedule to be played.
I feel
January.
like you need to.
And by the way, they also play the top 2 teams in the East too. So like they are. You need to put the ether beat on when you saying that schedule out. My goodness, the schedule makers was like, oh yeah, y'all got some home games, huh? Okay, all right, we're gonna show you. January is going to tell us a lot about where the Pelicans are. Obviously, we'll talk about the game tomorrow versus the number 1 team in the West. But you're going to get them all. You're going to get all the people that are in front of you. OKC's playing lights out. They blew out the Celtics today. Like all these teams that are playing hot and everybody's really high, you're going to get your shot at. And so far this season, the Pelicans have done well in the games versus the high-profile teams. It's been the games versus the not-so-high-profile teams that the Pelicans have struggled in. And so when you look at January, what are some of the things you want to find out about the team as you exit into Mardi Gras in February?
Man, this is it, right? Like this, the NBA season is long. It is a long, grueling marathon, a war of attrition. But there are times in seasons where like your season is defined by these, right? Like by this stretch. The Pelicans have done well. They are currently 6 games above 500, 5 games above 500, whatever they are right now. You've done well. All of it could be for naught if you go on this stretch in January and wet the bed, right? And show the NBA what they think about you, what they already feel about you. That owe you this hot sizzle in the pan, and then you kind of go away when the big dogs come around or when the games go to calling. When the games matter, you shrivel. Like these are the games, right? These are the games. These is the stretch. And so when you're playing Denver and Dallas and Sacramento and Minnesota, like you have to put a product on the floor and effort on the floor that says, listen, we are amongst some of those teams. Like you have to look at your schedule and say, damn, we play the Pelicans. Like you have to have that kind of mentality going into these games. And there is no time for, resting on back-to-backs. I think Zion, if he could play, I don't know. I think this is, you could, that's a wrap on that. So I think, you have to take this trip in this January very serious. You have to take it as a proving ground. And the Pelicans, listen, right on the other side of that is the trade deadline. This is about as best as a time to have a stretch like this where you go through all of this and you, at the end of it, you look at all your nicks and your bruises and your cuts and your bloody noses and you say, all right, who's still left? What do we look like? What do we need? Is the big missing the big? Is it glaring? Like, is it screaming at us right now? Do we need to do something with a point guard? Like, you'll know a lot about this team going into the trade deadline. And I think that's the best thing that could happen for the Pelicans, honestly, is to have this stretch and to see, okay, are we serious this year? Like, did we go, I guess 7-3 or 6-4, or did we go 4-6 and 3-7 or something like that, to where now you've dropped back, right? You're towards the bottom of the play-in and things like that. This is the opportunity to stamp it, to put yourself in a conversation where they can't ignore you. We've seen what OKC has done coming into this. I think people were like, they could make the playoffs, they could do things. OKC has gone from, are they going to make a superstar trade, to like, can they win the championship this year? And it's because of the product that they put on the floor, the teams that they've beat. They've beat Boston, they've beat Denver, they've beat all of those teams. Now it's your opportunity to do the same thing, right? And lastly, Zion and Brandon Ingram. You want to be amongst those guys? You want to be listed in the all, get some of that narrative push for all NBA and all this and all of that. This is do it. Do it against Denver. Do it against Boston. Do it against these teams, some of these teams coming up, and show that you belong on the floor with the Anthony Edwards and the Jokic's and those guys, and have this team 4 or 5, even looking at the 3-ish coming out of January, and we'll see, I bet you there'll be some conversations there.
Right. Again, the Pels aren't going to have all-stars and all NBA players based off stats. Just that's not how, as long as the team is healthy, and again, knock on wood, it's just not going to work out this way. It's going to be, how do you perform in these games that everybody's watching on national TV versus Giannis and versus Embiid and versus Jason Tatum? How do you show up in those times? So I'm looking at Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. These are your times to put your footprint on this season. So it starts tomorrow with Anthony Edwards coming off a loss. They haven't lost back-to-backs all season long. Anthony Edwards has been cooking as of late.
Yes, he has.
He's been getting to the free throw line, so the Pelicans need to watch out for foul trouble in that standpoint. So far, the Pels are 1-1 versus Timberwolves. One game was when the Timberwolves won without Zion, by 1 without Zion. The other game is when the Pelicans won by a lot without Anthony Edwards. So you really haven't been able to see the two teams real. Well, you're going to see it tomorrow, and that's going to be quite a game to look for. So what are some of the key trends you're looking for as the Pelicans start the beginning of Hell's Row in January?
Build the wall in front of Ant. And for God's sake, don't let Dyson guard Cat by himself with the game on the line. Just don't do that. I just don't do that. Don't do that to Dyson. He don't deserve that, man. But no, I think, listen, it's gonna be a hell of a game. I think the Pelicans have, we talk about exercising demons in his homestand. Like, Minnesota is still one of those teams like that you're gonna have to beat in order to do anything this season. Obviously, they are at the top of the West. They are the big dogs. And so, you get your first shot to kind of prove yourself. You had a good rest for this next game. Really, honestly, for the Lakers game too, right? Like, a lot, towards the end, wasn't a lot of left to be played, a lot to play for at the end of that game either. So, you've had some rest, right? You've had not a lot of close games. This is an opportunity. This is not going to be a blowout for the Pelicans. I don't think they're going to blow the Timberwolves out. You're going to have to play. You're going to have to. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So you're going to have to play into the final buzzer. You're going to have to continue to play into the things that you do well. Pay attention to the details. Pay attention to knowing your personnel. Make sure you're getting out on the shooters. Make sure you're not closing out too hard on the non-shooters. Like Jaden McDaniels and those guys. Like, you have to make sure you're paying attention to the details. And I think the Pelicans are on a bit of a heater right now as far as shooting, as far as offensive execution. And I think, this is an opportunity to exercise some more demons, go on the road and exercise some more demons. And so we'll see. We'll see how they play. Herb is going to have his hands full. Anthony Edwards is a load offensively. He is playing out of his mind right now. But I think the Pelicans have the right mindset going into this game. They've been playing the right way. And as long as they don't fall into some of their bad habits, the hero ball, the not getting back on defense, not contesting shots, as long as they don't get into that, I think the Pelicans have a good shot to continue this winning streak.
I say this, just like the last Timberwolves game, The Pels are second in the NBA in free throw attempts. The Wolves are the number 1 defensive team in the league. Just because they have a lot of size doesn't mean you should stop doing what you do best. And the Pelicans should try to get Cat, who is a habitual fouler, and Rudy Gobert in foul trouble is right off the bat. And if they get blocked at the rim, go right back again, because there's a good chance that you're going to get foul trouble. And that's another way how you beat. We talk about answering questions and having answers to different problems. Another way to get some of those good defenders off the court is to get them on the bench in foul trouble. And so if the Pelicans stay with that mentality and play inside out and take good shots, again, when they play that way, they can play it with anybody in the league. So it depends on what level of energy they bring on from a night-to-night perspective.
Mike Conley can't stay on the floor if I'm the Pelicans. He cannot stay on the floor. I am every play attacking Mike Conley until Chris Finch has to take him off the floor. Attack the mismatches. They are there. Every team has them. They go at JV. They go at CJ McCollum. They go at Zion. Every team has them, right? And so you have to find and locate the one that Minnesota has. They have one in Mike Conley. Attack him with Zion. Put him in pick and rolls with Zion. Put him in pick and rolls with BI. Put him in pick and rolls with JV if you have to. But wherever he is, that person should be screening for Zion and Brandon Ingram, and they should attack. Dump it off to the dunker spots if Rudy Gobert starts coming over to help. Just play smart basketball, play through the mismatches, play through your best players.
Absolutely. So what you got left for the people as we wrap up and look at a very important game that the Pelicans look at tomorrow?
Absolutely. As always, you never know what somebody's going through, so give someone a smile a day. Yeah, it is. It is. This is it. This is the stretcher. So it starts tomorrow. Pelicans going to have to get down and play some good basketball, and I think they have an opportunity to do so. Happy New Year to everybody out there, man. Thank you guys so much for the support in 2023. It was phenomenal. You guys show so much love. And we see all the comments. We hear all the messages. We hear all the words of affirmation. And we receive that love. We give it back to y'all. So really appreciate it. But as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother, Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO Basketball, no E. That's on X, Instagram, wherever you get your social medias. Subscribe to NewOrleans.basketball, and we'll see you guys next time.